Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Financial Tides. Today, I'm going to be joined by a guest speaker because we're going to be talking about young adults. And who better to be joining me today than Amanda Endersby, another next generation advisor that's in the firm with me. So, Amanda, say hello to everyone.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Perfect. So, we're going to start off talking today about why it's important to start investing early. So, Amanda, you want to start us there?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely really important to start investing early. Too many people focus on trying to time the market instead of time in the market. That's what we really focus on. The longer that you have in the market, the more time you have for your funds to kind of lose some money when the market drops and then gain money. So, yeah, the longer you're in the market, it's much better for you. Did you want to tell them, Taylor, why time
Yeah.
in the market's better?
Yeah, so historically, the market has grown long term. When you look at short periods of time, you don't really know what the market's going to do, but over a long period of time, the market has grown, grown, grown. So the longer you extend the time out, the bigger mitigator of stock market risk. So we're not only talking about investing in just stocks here, but if you look at the S&P 500, for example, one major index considered one of the benchmarks of many people. The S&P 500 on a day-to-day basis, any 1 day period, it's only positive about 53% of the time, as you'll see here. But if you extend the time out, you get out to a 10-year period, you're looking at a 97% chance, any 10-year period. So you pick a date in the past that has a 97% chance over the next 10 years of being positive based on the past performance. So that's not a guarantee of future results, but we know that historically, the further out you extend, the better chance that you have of it being positive. So, and we're not even just talking about a 10-year time period here. We're talking about retirement, which for the young adults that we're really catering this to today, 25, 45 years out, the odds of the market being positive over that point in time are very much in your favor. So again, time is the biggest mitigator of overall market risk. And the earlier that you invest, the more compounding works to your advantage. So that kind of introduces the idea of compounding, Amanda. So talk about how that could impact your long-term growth.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know really what compounding interest is, it's really your interest is collecting interest on itself. So any interest that you're earning on your original investment is now collecting interest. So if I, invest $1,000 into a 3% compounding interest investment, the first year I'm going to make $30 on it. Not too big of a deal, a couple coffees here and there. But the next year I'm going to earn the 3% on the $1,030 and so on and so forth. And so that money is really going to grow a lot faster than if it was just the 3% on the original $1,000 for the next couple of years. And the longer that you wait to invest, the less the compounding interest is going to work in your favor.
Yeah, and I think that the first story that I was always taught when I started getting in this industry was the tale of two savers. And it kind of goes like this. I'll give you the short highlighted story of it. But basically, two friends went to high school together, went to college together. They were both really good friends through that whole time. They decided that they needed to save for their future. So coming out of college, the one friend, we'll call that friend Susie, worked really hard putting away her money. She worked part-time and full-time trying to get that money in, and every single year she invested $2,000 year after year. But she at age 33 decided she wanted to start having a family, start having kids, and she couldn't do that anymore. So she was earning about 10% on that $2,000 she invested every single year, had to stop eventually, but she started early. Sam decided that, we'll call Sam friend two. Sam decided that he couldn't save right away. He wanted to save later in life, and he wanted to enjoy his youth and travel, and after college get a nice new car and all of that fun stuff. And he couldn't start saving until the same year that Susie decided she was going to stop. Age 34, he decided to get on the ball and say, hey, you know what? Susie's been doing it. It's been working so well for her. and started investing $2,000 a year, same 10% rate of return annually that Susie was getting. But when you look at the numbers when it comes time for retirement, we'll just call retirement age 65 to make it easy. You'll see here what happened over time for the two of them. So Sam, who decided that he had to spend for the first period of time in his life while Susie was saving, never actually caught up at retirement age. In fact, he was less than half of what Susie ended up having. And that's really the power of compounding interest early on in life, saving while you can, because even though Sam invested for about double the amount of years that Susie was investing for, he never got back to where Susie was from just doing it early for about half the time. So again, we want to invest early, we want to invest often. The more you can do, the better, but always get started with something. Something is better than nothing. So kind of piggybacking off that, getting started early, what kind of investment goals should somebody be setting when they start investing early, Amanda?
Yeah, I think investment goals, they really vary from person to person. There's just a couple that I think can really be a blanket statement, a blanket goal for everyone. The first is to have an emergency savings. I mean, you definitely want to work on saving enough to cover 1 month of all your expenses, right? Just look through what are you normally spending on a month, your bills, rent or mortgage or car insurance, anything like that. And save enough for 1 month, then work on 2 months, 3 months, and just get up to 6 months. If you that should be your goal. If you get to 6 months worth of emergency savings, then that's kind of what we recommend. And then you don't really need to save any more cash. And then the next goal is to focus on your company's retirement savings fund. So at the very least, you should be putting away as much as your company's going to match. So most companies have like some sort of match, maybe 3%. So at the very least, you should be investing 3% of your yearly salary into your retirement company, or sorry, your retirement fund for your company. Because if you're not matching what they're matching, then you're really just leaving free money on the table. But once they're doing those two things, Taylor, what else can they do? That would be good investment goals for somebody.
Yeah, so getting your retirement account to the max is really the first priority. If that retirement plan doesn't offer a Roth, you have that option possibly to do yourself, depending on your income level, which it's something we review with all of our young clients and say, hey, why don't you consider setting up a Roth, and if they're eligible. And I think it's really important because we're talking about all this compounding interest, but if the compounding interest is growing in an account like a retirement account that's a traditional IRA, you're going to have to pay taxes on all that growth when you take the money out. So we know that us at a young age with a lot of time for compounding, we'd rather have it be tax-free, pay taxes on upfront and tax-free on the back end, so we don't have to pay taxes on all that compounded growth. So that's a Roth account, and that's something that we look at a lot, especially for the younger clients right now. Really depends on income thresholds and other goals, but it's something that can be extremely powerful if you start at a young age. So once you have all those three things in line, there's other options as well. There's after tax accounts that you can start saving, which aren't quite as tax favorable, but if you have all your other bases covered, it's great to continue saving. So before that, though, we talked about an emergency fund, Amanda. Why is that so important?
Yeah, an emergency fund is very important. Nobody wants to believe that anything's going to happen to them, right? You know, you hear the horror stories, but it would never be me. But you don't want to be, stuck with an unexpected medical bill, or your car breaks down, or you get laid off, and you're just kind of scrounging for money, right? You want to kind of have that 6 months, or that kind of fund of money to pay for something that unexpectedly is happening, because you don't want to have to put it on a credit card bill. The interest rates are insane on those, and it just kind of can lead into a financial spiral.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing is financial spiral. I was reading around at one point in time, and I think it was a year or so ago, but Motley Fool did a study And they found out that 47% of Americans, about half of Americans, this isn't a third world country or anything, Americans, about half of them can't handle a $500 emergency bill without having some sort of worry. So that problem can snowball quickly, and you end up putting that on a credit card, 27% interest or whatever interest your credit card has. Now you're paying interest on top of the money you already owed. So it's just staggering to think that you could pay interest to somebody else for something that was already costing you because you don't have that $500 saved somewhere. So we always say, and I was told this growing up, you don't plan to fail. You fail to plan, and you need to plan on having an emergency fund set up on the front end. So if something does come up, you can cover that. You can take care of yourself, and you're not living hand to mouth, having to put something on a credit card and making your problem now worse.
Absolutely. So we talked a lot about kind of saving, right? And we talked about retirement accounts, but we know that retirement accounts are, your money's a little bit locked up, right? Until you're about 59 and a half, unless there's a very limited list of why you could kind of use that money. So what are some things that people can do outside of that? What are other good options for people to consider?
Yeah, we see this a lot, especially with the younger clients, is that there's a lot of goals that people have outside of just retirement. Retirement seems like almost a fantasy. It's so far away when you're 25, 30, 35 years old, and you're thinking you're going to retire maybe around 65 years old. It just feels so far away that a lot of the times you're saving your money towards some of the more short and intermediate term goals, like buying a house, starting a family, funding colleges for the family that you already have. So there's a lot of other different goals that can happen besides retirement. And that's where it comes to the point of our strategy needing to be really aligned with, you put your assets in assets that support the goal timeline. So if you have a short-term goal you're looking to do in the next year or two, you want that money to be liquid. You want it to be safe. You don't want to put your money in there and then when you need to spend it a year from now, see that the market went down 20% and have those funds were at risk, and you now need to save 20% more just to get back there. And the more intermediate goals, you can give up a little bit of liquidity because you're not going to spend it right away, but you still want that money to be safe and counted on. And then some of the more long-term goals, that's when we start looking at, hey, we can give this market exposure. It doesn't need to be completely safe. We want to kind of target a bit more return and a bit more growth on it. And we know that being we have a longer time horizon, and that's back to that first point we made, is that time is the biggest mitigator of risk. Is now we have a longer time horizon, we can be a bit more aggressive with those funds to kind of chase that higher return. So that's kind of the idea of what to be investing in a high level if you're not looking at just retirement. But then the other investment you can make is insurance for yourself and for your family. I think a lot of people just look at the stocks and the overall investments, and they forget that as a certified financial planner myself, and my father, who's also a member of this firm, we really look at the whole picture, and we want to protect you against risks other than just stock market risk. We want to protect you against risks of death, risk of disability. And those are two things that we'll address in an insurance podcast a bit more, but just are really important protectors that we see as an investment into just taking more risks off the table. So it's definitely something to consider as well. So as far as retirement accounts go, Amanda, what are some of them, just bouncing back onto the retirement side of things, what are some of the contribution limits of these accounts, just so people know? I know we talked about trying to max those out.
Yeah, we definitely want to max them out as much as we can, right? That goes back to the time in the market, your compounding interest. So contribution limits are very important to know. So for 401ks for 2023, the contribution limit is $22,500, but that's going to be increasing to $23,000 in 2024. And then for the Roth contribution limit, that is $6,500 for 2023 and increasing to $7,000 for 2024. So those are about the $500 increases per year, but you don't know what that $500 could look like once that interest starts compounding on that. And Taylor, do you want to talk about kind of the differences of the tax advantages for the Roth accounts versus the 401k accounts?
Yeah, and I think there's an important distinguishment that a lot of 401k plans now offer Roth options as well. So I just think it's worth mentioning that because it gives you a higher contribution limit, just like the other 401ks. But really, the tax advantages come down to whether you want to get a tax write-off and reduce your income now, which is the case of the traditional 401k or traditional IRA, or there's the Roth, which you pay the taxes on it up front, so your income stays the same, but then as it grows, once you get to the age 59 and a half, you take it out and you don't pay any taxes on that growth. So it's really depending on what you need then and there. A lot of people will say, hey, this was a huge income year for me. I need the tax write-offs. That makes sense. But a lot of the younger clients, again, we tend to lean Roth with, just because a lot of growth is supposed to happen before we're touching these funds, and nothing beats having them be already tax-free when you want to start using them. So
Right. Do you want to share some common investment mistakes that young adults should avoid?
yeah, I think the first one, and the one I see too often and see a lot even with the older clients, that it has kind of caught up with them over the years, is lifestyle inflation. And that's really just, if your income increases, you get that first pay raise out of college, you get the first promotion, and instead of making a plan to save some of that for yourself, you start increasing your lifestyle and you say, hey, I want the new car, I can get a nicer place to live, I'm gonna go eat out more. And I think a lot of the times people don't realize that what a double-edged sword it is, because instead of saving early and getting that compounding, you're actually increasing your bills and your lifestyle spend. And it's really hard for people to tone that down, especially if you continue to do that promotion after promotion after promotion. And eventually you now get to retirement, you didn't save enough, but you have now this enormous lifestyle of lavish travel and nice car and a great, beautiful home. And you don't realize that your income in retirement now has to keep up with that, but you didn't save anything to create assets to really keep up with that. So our biggest recommendation is anytime you get a promotion, you either alternate promotions or raises and say, okay, this first raise is going all to savings, and then the next one I can go to increasing my lifestyle, and then back to 100% of it going into savings, or just dividing up the pay raises 50% each time and say, okay, half of this is going to go directly into savings, and then the other half of it can go towards buying extra cups of coffee, eating out an extra night of the week, and going on an extra trip if I want. So just kind of splitting that up so your lifestyle doesn't get exponentially bigger and you have nothing to show for it when retirement does come around.
Yeah, we definitely see people trying to chase the hot stocks, right? You think that there's always a new stock that everyone's like, oh, this one's gonna hit, this one's gonna go to the moon, and you put all your money in, and then 19 out of 20 times it fails, and maybe once, if you're lucky, that it doesn't fail and it is a success, but you probably pretty much just end up making back the money from the last 19 that didn't go to the moon. And so we really see that these get rich quick kind of stock investments, they fail a lot more often than they do succeed. And so here we really are for the core and explore type of investing. So we really want to build out this core diversified portfolio with kind of the risk and the reward that we can count on, and we know what kind of to expect from this portfolio. And then once that's really built out, we kind of then we can explore, right? Is it something that you like to do, to mess around with the kind of higher risk options or things like that? If you're comfortable with that, then once we have that core, then we're more comfortable kind of exploring the other options.
Yeah, core and explore is something that we are big believers in, because without a core portfolio, you don't have anything. So get your core down first. So that's going to wrap it up for our episode of Financial Tides today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Feel free to share this with a young adult who you think could benefit, whether that's a friend of yours, a child of yours. We hope that it can add some value to them and where they are at in their lives. So just to summarize what we went over today, just make sure that you have an emergency fund, save early and save often, and try to take advantage of the different tax routes that are available to you. And then make sure that you don't fall victim to lifestyle inflation and set up a core portfolio as you're building out your assets. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day.
John Parrillo, Taylor Parrillo, and Amanda Endersby are financial advisors offering securities through Cetera Advisors LLC, a registered broker-dealer doing insurance business in California as CFGA Insurance Agency LLC, member of FINRA/SIPC, advisory services offered through Cetera Investment Advisors LLC. A registered investment advisor, Cetera firms are under separate ownership from any other named entity. California insurance licenses number 0F60123 and 0M90666, 6265 Greenwich Drive, Suite 251, San Diego, California 92122. The views depicted in this material are for information purposes only and are not necessarily those of Cetera Advisors LLC. They should not be considered specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Neither Cetera Advisors LLC nor any of its representatives may give legal or tax advice. All investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will be successful. Investors cannot invest directly in indexes. The performance of any index is not indicative of the performance of any investment and does not take into account the effects of inflation and the fees and expenses associated with investing. The examples shown are hypothetical only and do not represent the actual performance of any particular investments. Investments in securities do not offer a fixed rate of return. Principal, yield, and or share price will fluctuate with changes in market conditions and when sold or redeemed. You may receive more or less than originally invested. Some IRAs have contribution limits and tax consequences for early withdrawals. For complete details, consult your tax advisor or attorney. To qualify for tax-free and penalty-free withdrawal or earnings, a Roth IRA must be in place for at least 5 tax years, and the distribution must take place after the age 59.5 or due to death, disability, or first-time home purchase up to $10,000 lifetime maximum. Depending on state law, Roth IRA distributions may be subject to state taxes.